Okay, all right, so we're ready to go. Now, I might do this one, actually no, I'll do this one first. Okay, so this was just a little simple one, and it was just a little simple leaf design. This is the floppy. Now, they're all going to behave a bit differently from each other. This is the floppy. Now, hopefully Ali doesn't say anything terrible there. Look, she's doing one final epic keynote. What you do need to do before you start is, with a soft brush, just give it a really good brush, because you don't want any little bits that might be on the surface. And you also need to make sure that your surface is super clean. Now, I gave mine a proper wipe down, so hopefully it'll be okay. So that's really important, that you've given that a really good clean. Okay, so I'm using Daravan block ink in this case, just a water-based block ink. And always, see what I'm doing there? Bloody stinks. Hang on, I'll just open the window. Okay, always give that ink a good mix. Inks can separate. There's normally an oil or an emulsifier in there, and they can just split. So just make sure you give that a really good work over. And then we just need a little bit over here. Now, the temptation is to put a lot, but we don't need a lot. We just need a little bit, and we can always add more if need be. Now, when you start rolling, it feels like you haven't got enough there. Sorry about that light. So it feels like we haven't got enough there, but if we just keep going, better to not have enough on there and have to add more than to put too much on. Okay, so that's very, very fine. It's not loads of ink at all. And then I'm right to roll onto the image. And now we can actually see what that image looks like. Now, I've rolled that once, now I need to do that again. So it's not a matter of one roll, and it's very fine. This is a very fine layer of ink, but I'm repeating that process several times. And with the last one, I just want to roll it along and lift it up like that, so that there's no hard marks there. Now, generally speaking, your first print doesn't print very well, so don't have too higher expectations for that very first print. Just rest that on there, and then we want to grab the Baron. Oh, I forgot to get the rice spoon. Now, I'm putting quite a bit of pressure on here, so it'll actually emboss the background a little bit. I'm just going to do this because I haven't got my rice spoon. And the paper that I'm using is a mulberry paper, so it's a very light, thin paper. And I can just check to see how it's looking. This one's going to be a bit pale. They're always pale on that first print, so don't stress too much. As you go, you can kind of go, oh yeah, that's working or that's not working. Now, what I immediately noticed, and I wondered about this before, is that these edges have got little dents in them. If your piece of rubber was an outside piece, you might have noticed that there are some little divots along there. They're showing up. So I need to actually I need to cut that. So I'm ready to go for another bash. And again, I need to ink up. Probably the biggest mistake people make is having too much ink, so having it too wet. If you put on too much and it's really wet, just get your scraper, scrape a bit back and re-ink it up. That's the best thing to do. You don't want too much ink on there because it'll go down into the cracks, and then it's not going to, no matter what, it's not going to print too well. It can be problematic at this stage if you've got whiter areas on the outside edge of the print, which this one hasn't got. This one here has. Sometimes what you can do is just put a little bit of lino, say that bit there, I could put that out there so that I had something to roll against. So this one's fine because everything's contained within that edge. It's good to just have a rag to be able to wipe away any bits. Oh bugger, I just bumped that on the outside edge. Oh, I just bumped the whole thing, which is a bit of a bugger. Oh. See how we go. So normally I would use a spoon as well as the Baron, but I just forgot to bring it up. Yeah, this is working better. And the good thing with a spoon is it'll get right into little detailed areas. That one's better. So you can see it's super simple design and sort of like a couple of minutes to produce the actual plate itself, but it's kind of interesting as a print. So that's your simplest type of print. Okay, we'll have a go at this one. So same deal, make sure you've gotten all of the, rub all of those potential bits. Any little bit will come out as a little dot. Now this one's actually silk cut lino, so it's a different type of lino.
Tracy, would you ever do the other way around and have the paper on the board and then put your lino on top?
No, always paper goes on the top of lino, and that's because you can't get the pressure. If you were going that way, there's no way of getting the pressure onto it. So always the paper goes onto the top of the lino. So we can see here now, we can start to see what this one's going to look like, remembering that this is the proof, and there'll be changes that I'll make to it. So you can see how that's hit along there. So if I had had that there, it wouldn't have touched those bits because it would be touching that bit, if that makes sense. But I didn't, so that's the breaks. So you really need a nice clean surface. And the good thing with this...
Is there a right side or a wrong side on the mulberry paper?
Yeah, I'm using the shiny side down. But it's kind of good to try both because sometimes you get interesting effects that you didn't anticipate by using it the other way around. So it's can be good to test both ways. The good thing that I like about using a thin paper is that you can see it through. So we're seeing that imprint coming through, and it gives you a bit of an idea of how it's looking. The other thing that I find is quite often the edges get a bit missed, and that's where the spoon comes in. So normally I would be using the spoon to really burnish up those edges, but I don't have it. So Also keep in mind that you can always have a look and you can rework, but again, it's the first print, so I'm not anticipating it to be super strong, but it's kind of cute. So when I look at this now, there's a couple of things that I would change. I'm not mad on these lines in here. I find that a bit distracting, and that bit in there. So I think I would take them away. I don't mind these, but I don't like those couple there, so I'd probably take those away. And I think this just needs a bit of straightening up here. For some reason it's a bit wonky in there, so I'll take a little bit more of that away. Muffed that up, but I knew I'd muck that up at the time, so I've just got to live with that. The rest of it I don't mind too much. Maybe I'll take a little bit away from that, but that's where you've got a bit of time to actually just see how it's looking. So I think that's an important thing to do. I would take a few more prints, but I would just use that as a proof and then do a bit more work on that one. The third type of stuff that we've got is this, which is the blue or the green liner, whichever the case may be in your case. So the number one thing you're going to do wrong is you're going to put too much ink on. So if you can kind of do it with the intention of putting not enough ink on, and you'll be closer to what you should be aiming for. A little piece of paper. So if in doubt, put less ink on there than you think is what you need. The larger scale, as you scale it up, the more you have to work in this process. Because these ones are just little, it doesn't take very much to do. Yeah. So again, similar to that other one, pretty simple to do. And I'll just do a quick proof of this one. So it's kind of not a bad idea just to do a series of proofs. Make sure that you've got them all ready to go, and then have a run. I actually used an alcohol swab on this one because it was the texture that I used was quite uneven, and I was a bit concerned that was going to potentially be a bit of an issue. So I don't know whether it would have been or not. I might just swap brayers. So remember that we're looking for a soft shh sound as opposed to Velcro. So if you've got a sound like Velcro, really tacky sort of sound, you've got too much ink going on. So we just want a very soft sort of, really soft sound. It's always good to have a brayer that fits the entire length of the piece. It's not always practical though, so sometimes you just don't have one large enough. They come in all sorts of sizes. All of these linos you can wash, so you can wash them afterwards, and you would wash them afterwards. Had one. I'm done. I had one before. I broke early. Sorry, Chris.
Sorry.
Thanks anyway. Pretty good. I use a different paper. This is the Litho paper this time, so shiny on one side, matte on the other. I'm going to use it shiny side down. see if I can get the spoon. Hang on a sec. Hey Chris, can you grab me the rice spoon? You know, the spoon with the red handle, you know, in the top drawer? Thanks, hon. Thank you. So I'm using this one, our favourite, you know, spoon from a Asian food market. So that's really good because you can really get some you know, strength into it, and particularly good for the areas around the face. So again, my expectation is that this one will be a bit light, but the subsequent prints will be darker and stronger. Remember too that you can go along and go, oh yeah, no, I need a bit more there, and you can continue to work stuff up that way as well. Yeah, cool. So that's a good start. Yeah, that's a good start. I'll re-ink that one and have another go, but that gives you the basic idea there. So I'll just give that one another bash.
Tracy,
Yeah.
what happens when you use acrylics and other sorts of paint?
They're not designed. The thing with the block printing, the relief printing inks, is that they don't dry straight away. Whereas acrylic, you know how quickly acrylic paint dries, so it's going to dry quickly. Now, so long as if you worked quickly, and it's not the right consistency. This paint's very tacky, and you kind of need that tackiness. Yeah, the tackiness is quite an important. Like, it's not that it won't work, but it won't work as well. It's not sort of fit for purpose, for want of a better word. Now, remember, you do want to make sure that that's clean each time, because you're going to put your nice clean piece of paper down, and you don't want it to be dirty. Bit wonky, this one. I just cut the edges of these too, just to, I don't know, just for a change. The heavier the weight of the paper, obviously the harder it is to get a good print, so you want to be using a light paper. However, if you had a press, you can use heavyweight printmaking papers then, because it's going through under pressure, but we don't have that luxury. If anybody's got a die cut machine, like an old craft press die cut machine, or no, not even a pasta press isn't really going to work. So the more time you take in this part of the process, the better the print's going to be. So do take time. It's getting there. I'd expect the next one to be a little bit stronger again. So bit by bit, that'll come good. If you get, imagine in here, if I had a white dot, like a spot, like a white circle, that's normally an indication that you've got a little bit of scrap lino, a bit of dirt or something on the plate. So because it's raised up, it doesn't cover very well. So just be aware of that too. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 prints before you get a print that you're really happy with. It's got a strong, strong black and white, like that kind of thing there, which is that plate. So it can take a little while to get your consistency right and your technique right, and this was probably the 3rd or the 4th print, and you can see it's covered really nicely. So better to put less ink on and gradually increase that ink as you go, if required, than it is to go berserker with it and have too much. Now, I don't know if I showed you or not, but when I'm finished printing, I like to just have a scrap bit of paper and I just clean my brayers with the scrap paper. And I really like what it does, and it's got the potential to become something that you can use down the track for other things. So I like to do that. I'll show you some examples. Some examples here. So just varying kind of patterns and textures, and they can become, potentially the basis for something else down the track. Yeah, so that's what I do, and then I would wash that after that. So once I'd done that, I would wash it. You don't want those brayers drying out, so when you take your lunch break, you need to go and wash your brayers out.